This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct this evening from Black Facts Headquarters Central with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. I hope y'all ready for a real good time because we're ready to read the next installment of our story about the young man Abraham Hannibal and the Raiders of the Sands. But before we do that, you know we always need to do a couple of little bitty things here. And first and foremost, we need to go ahead and, if you're watching this on Facebook, give us a like. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And then go ahead and let all your friends and your family members know where they need to be at this time of night on a weeknight. Right here on the Tubular Black Facts channel. So once we get all that straightened out, then we can go ahead on with the rest of our program. And we're going to start off with our proverb for the evening, which is from the country of, let's see where exactly it's from tonight. All right, see what we got tonight. One who runs alone cannot be outrun by another. One who runs alone cannot be outrun by another. Interesting proverb. And of course, you already know where that proverb is from. None other than the Empire of Ethiopia. All right. Now, let's go ahead and continue on with our story. We've been reading about Abraham Hannibal and the Raiders of the Sands. And right now we're just kind of setting the stage. So let's continue to set this stage. He's at home with his family and his new pet, lion cub. Imagine that. Imagine if you could have a pet lion cub. Wouldn't that be the stuff? I mean, that's way better than a pit bull. You know what I mean? Yeah, a lion cub. Who has a lion cub as a pet? If you had one, you'd be the only one on your block with your own pet lion cub. But since that's not the case, then you just have to use your imagination. Abraham and Leah knelt miserably on the floor of their hut with the lion cub in his basket between them. The rickety door was closed as firmly as possible in case he should try to disappear when they let him out. A tiny oil lamp was the only light. How are we expected to enjoy a feast when this is happening to the other boys? Muttered Abraham bitterly. It doesn't make sense. How can Father do such a thing? Now, if you've been with us and you remember the previous episode, you'll remember that Abraham saved the village and his father's crops and the family from a herd of rampaging elephants. He led them in a different direction and they followed him to the edge of a river. And I believe they fell into the river, if I'm not mistaken. But he definitely led them away from the village, while his older brothers did not. And him being the youngest, based on the laws of primogeniture, he was not expected to inherit anything. He was not expected to get any special favors from his father or anything like that. His father was not even really supposed to take too much notice that he even existed, much less move him to the front of the line. But because he created this, he engaged in this act of heroism, his father is punishing all of his brothers by having them tied up and taken to the top of Mount Damo, while Abraham is has now become his favorite. And so that's what he's talking about here, that his brothers are being punished. And of course, you know, his father has many wives. I believe he said he had about 7 wives. So he has many wives. So not all of these brothers are by these are his brothers that have different mothers. It doesn't make sense. How can father do such a thing? Shh. Laia was talking even more quietly than her brother. Granny Esther says that the emperors in Gondar often send their sons and nephews to the top of a high mountain to keep them out of mischief. It happened to some of her own brothers. Maybe father thinks it's the right thing for a chief to do. It's so unfair, burst out Abraham in fury. I was just a bit quicker than they were. They'd have done the same if they'd had the chance. And quite a few of them weren't even there. I mean, they weren't even supposed to be in charge of the cows. Laia grunted. You mean the big boys? Well, I know where they were, drinking in a mead house down in the town. And actually, in Ethiopia, we don't use the word mead. We use the word tej. So they were drinking in a tej house, a beta tej, down in the town. You know how father always says that a man should never drink till the day's work is done? I knew he was angry with them even before he went to see the Ras of Tigray, because he didn't take them with him. But anyway, what about the lion cub? It's all very well, father giving him to you, but where are we supposed to keep him? What are we supposed to feed him on? Good question when you're talking about a lion cub. Well, meat, of course, said Abraham. Don't be silly. We don't have meat every day. And what about when everyone's fasting during Lent and Advent? There won't be any meat for weeks on end. In any case, he's too little to eat meat, says his sister. They peered at the small golden bundle inside the cage. His fierce snarling had faded into sad little whimpers. He must be starving, said Abraham worriedly, and thirsty. I suppose he needs his mother. All of a sudden, his present didn't seem such a treat anymore. How about some warm new milk, suggested Laia. We could maybe beat an egg into it. I'll go and ask mother if we can have some. You stay with him and cheer him up. Don't let him out till I get back, though. At last, they were sitting with a calabash of milk and raw egg. Doesn't that sound good? Ready to let the cub out. Laia had chosen a long, narrow-necked calabash and made a cone-shaped end for it out of a soft piece of goat skin, with a hole for the cub to suck at. Very gently, Abraham opened the basket and stroked the soft fur. The cub growled, but only weakly, and let himself be lifted out and held in the boy's arms. Feeding him was a tricky business, especially in the near darkness. When he felt the calabash pressed against his mouth, he kept turning his head away. But at last, Abraham held the cub's jaws open while Laia trickled the milk in for minute after minute, and he began to suck. The two children looked at each other in delight. I think it's going to be all right, whispered Abraham. I think so too, whispered Laia in reply. What are you going to call him? Well, considered her brother, one day perhaps he will be a great hunter, like his mother and father before him. I think he should be called Nimrod, after the one in the Bible, because he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. They practiced saying it, Nimrod, Nimrod, and stroked him under his chin. But Nimrod, the mighty hunter, was fast asleep. Okay, so let me see. Okay, we could still do one more. Chapter 6, the feast. The next day, after food supplies had been organized, the 19 boys, their hands still tied, were lined up by a dozen guards to start the 4 days journey south to Mount Damo. So they obviously weren't taking a car, a train, a bus, or a plane. They were walking. Their mothers and sisters, Granny Esther, the house slaves, Makeda, Abraham, and Laia, all gathered to see them go, but they departed in silence. Phares, the lord of the sea, was standing with his arms folded watching, and no one dared say what was in their heart. In the evening, the feast began. Some 30 people in the big downstairs hall of his father's palace. For once, Abraham sat next to his father among the chief warriors instead of with the slaves and the children, and his mother sat on his father's other side. The two black faces on either side of Phares' honey-colored one. How would you like to be served before anyone, my young lord of the elephants? Abraham grinned. That would be all wrong, father. Then he quickly remembered his manners and said, but as your highness wishes, of course. Yeah, he should think about his manners, mind his manners. Well, today it will be all right. You, bring us food. And the slaves put in front of them the giant sour pancakes we call injera, the spiced raw meat we call kitfo, and the red pepper curry. Love that red pepper curry. We talking about some berbere, yeah, or some, we call it yakikwat, or it could be yamisarwat, with some chicken and eggs that he loved so much. Start, my boy. Tonight is your night. But something was still all wrong. Father, if I am to eat with the grown-ups, could Laia eat with us too? The Lord of the Sea laughed. Tonight, everything is possible. You, bring Laia. So a slave fetched Laia from the far end of the hall, and they feasted together. Abraham even made himself dizzy by drinking a little of the bright yellowed honey mead that we like to call ta'ej. Much later that night, Abraham got up to take care of his business in the yard. He was just going to say hello to Nimrod, who was chained to a post outside his hut, when he suddenly froze. Coming from somewhere was the sound of murmuring voices. There was very little moon, but over the palace, he could just make out two dark figures. He crept round in the shadow of the yard wall and he listened. I will have them brought back from Mount Damo when I think fit. They need to be taught a lesson. The younger boys are harmless enough, but that Gabra Selassie has a look in his eye that I don't like at all. They need to know who is master here. Then he heard his mother answering, my lord, I know that Abraham's distressed. He feels he's the cause of their punishment. Our son has to learn that there is no place for softness in this world. But I have to say it, he is a fine boy and a brave boy in spite of his fondness for books and Bible studies. You aren't so ignorant of the Bible yourself. I remember when we were younger. Abraham heard his father laugh softly and saw him move close to his mother, taking her face in his hands when he spoke. His voice sounded gentler than he had ever heard it. You mean you remember words like the song of King Solomon? Something like this? And to Abraham's surprise, the Lord of the Sea began to recite the words from the Bible, strange and beautiful old words that the boy could only half understand. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes. Thou art black, but lovely as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Thou art all fair, my love. His voice faded, and the two moved closer still. Abraham, torn between delight and embarrassment, tiptoed back to his hut, completely forgetting to say hello to Nimrod. Well, so much for Nimrod. Doesn't take much to forget Nimrod, does it? All right, well, we'll see how Nimrod does in the next chapter tomorrow night. Meanwhile, y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what you need to do. All you little children need to take your little heads, put them on your little pillows, on your little beds, close those your eyes, and wait on that sun to rise. And when you feel those sunbeams beaming down on your eyes, you know that it's time for you to rise and shine, oh children of mine. That's all y'all need to worry about doing for now. But as for you adults, you know what you need to do as well. Go ahead, give us a like if you're watching on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on the tube. And of course, go ahead and subscribe. The button is right there below. Don't miss it. It's easy to see. It's a big red button that says subscribe, or it might be a blue button, but it's right down there. Hit that button that says subscribe, and subscribe to our Tubular Black Facts channel. This is where you will get more information, more culture, more history about Africa, about African people all over the globe. Now, so far, we've hit on at least 3 continents. We've been in the Americas, we've been in the Caribbean, we've been in Africa, where we're at now, and we've also been in Europe. But soon come, we're going to even make it further out to Australia and maybe even the Arctic. Yes, because there are black people there too, believe it or not. But in the meantime, we're going to keep telling the story of Abraham Hannibal, and in the evening and during the day, we're reading about the Queen of Sheba, legend and reality. We're trying to get her story straight. We're not actually reading from this book, but that's basically what we're doing. So make sure to tune in. Doc Ock signing out as I send my greetings to Naima. It looks like Naima Joy. Okay. Give her a little shout out over there. And then we'll go ahead and do our transition and our extra. Peace out without a doubt. Of course, with much justice, because peace without justice disgusts us. And we don't like being disgusted, even though we like being discussed. We'll see y'all tomorrow at noon, high noon. Be here.